Welcome to What the Hype, and we are in the home stretch of episodes for this year. And this week we're looking at feedback we've received about all of the episodes we have released to date. And appropriately enough, all 5 What the Hypers are here. I don't have a name for us yet. On other shows, we're the MuggleCasters, the Millennials. Here it's the Hypers.
The Hype Squad.
The Hype Squad.
That's get good. Hype!
Yeah.
So we're all here to answer for our sins is what Andrew is saying. So whatever hate mail you've sent, we've received it.
Actually, I don't think I've seen much hate mail. We'll see the rogue comment on YouTube every once in a while complaining about something.
Content filters are working fine. We have not seen our own hate mail.
Maybe this is the wholesome show.
Yeah. Plus, it's the holiday season. Nobody wants to leave us negative feedback right now. You save that for like January when you're in a bad mood. But anyway, before we get to some listener feedback about the episodes we've done so far, I thought because we are at the end of the year here and we've done plenty of babbling since when did we premiere the show? In June? Why don't we hear what our listeners have been hyped about this year? So just to go through a list quickly, if you follow us on Instagram, you may have seen a post asking for your answers. And panel, feel free to jump in if any of these have spoken to you. Layla said Abbott Elementary has had her hyped this year. John said Yellowstone. Megan said Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a evergreen one.
Yeah, I mean, it totally is, especially with how she's kind of transcended a lot of like cultural lines with how big she's become in the world of football, for example. That's of course it's not just this year, but I mean that it has kind of transcended the way that people take in her music. Like I wouldn't consider myself a Swiftie, but I definitely sat up and took more notice of her this year and actually kind of dipped my toe in. And I have some stuff, some of her work that I genuinely actually really like now that I don't think I would have paid attention to before.
Oh, Pam, I wanted to tell you, and Laura, you can come too now since you're dipping your toe in. I've been invited to a Taylor Swiftmas party on her birthday, which is
on
Friday,
December 13th.
Yes.
Right.
And it's a Christmas party, Swiftmas.
Nice,
so
very cute.
If you want to come, let me know. I'll
Great.
get you
I'll book
in.
my ticket right now.
It's going to be the hottest party in Vegas, I think.
Sounds like it.
So here's a pick we haven't talked about yet. Sonia, Abby, and Bluesmith all said Wicked. Who here has seen Wicked, the new movie?
With luck,
Pam.
seeing it this weekend.
Okay.
Oh, nice. Well, it has been hard to get tickets. Like I tried to go see it again, and all of the showings that I could make were booked up. So,
oh wow,
maybe it's better to wait. Yeah. We did have plans to talk about Wicked, and then we just decided to bench them until the second part came out, so we could, give a more well-rounded discussion.
Yeah.
So
that said, it was fantastic. I was nervous going into it because this is just part 1 of 2, and part 1 was 2 hours, 40 minutes. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, they're really stretching it out. But then
once the Broadway show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then once the reviews started coming in, everybody was raving. So I felt a lot better about it. And the 2 hours, 40 minutes fly by too. So definitely would recommend
on
it.
a broom.
Yeah.
One can say they defy gravity.
The way TikTok has been going off on Wicked too, so phenomenal. There's been this meme going around about this clip of Ariana Grande during Popular going right and like slapping.
Oh yeah, that's so funny.
Oh my gosh, just so much to love on TikTok in regards to Wicked. But anyway, continuing along with listener feedback here, Midlands Witch said they've been hyped about Bratz and Charlie XCX in general.
Big moment over the summer, Brat summer.
I saw Micah just shaking his head, and I think I know why. He doesn't know what brat means.
What that is.
All right, now let's do 30 minutes on Brat
Yeah.
Summer.
Borat, and
Let me
it's
get
just
my
missing the
PowerPoint
O.
presentation ready.
No. Nats Roche said The Penguin. That's the new series on Max. I haven't seen that, but I've heard very good things. Anybody?
Yeah,
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
actually surprised I haven't seen it because I feel like that should have been something that I jumped on really quickly. There's just been so much to consume this year that it's been hard to find time for everything. It is on my list coming up. I'll probably watch it over the holidays.
Gabby said 21 Pilots. It's a popular band. Carly and Pat said The Great British Baking Show. It's always a feel-good,
Aw.
enjoyable show.
Pat.
Yeah, my Pat. It is my
Okay,
Pat.
just want to make sure.
Oh.
I was just going to say, Andrew, this must be really big in your household because I know Pat oftentimes bakes alongside the season, right? And he'll
Correct.
bake the various challenges. It's really cool.
Yeah, and of interest to this audience, we've also been watching this new Harry Potter baking show.
I was watching that yesterday.
Yeah. How
Wizards
is
of
it?
Baking.
Really
Actually,
fun.
really good. Yeah.
Mhm.
We should talk about it more on MuggleCast, but Great British Bake Off, it has more like everyday bakers. Like Pat could potentially be on the show. But on this show, it's a lot of professional bakers. And at first I was like, oh, that's not as fun. But they're creating some incredible Harry Potter inspired bakes. Just absolutely mind-blowing
That's cool.
creation. So it's
And you
it's
can tell
fun.
they're all fans genuinely because they get excited about the challenges, and whoever decided to set it at Leavesden, that was so smart.
Yeah,
because-
it's kind of one big ad for the studio tour
Yeah.
and the movies, but it's okay.
but very smart.
Uh-huh. Jenna also said Wicked, but added ACOTAR and the Golden Bachelor / Bachelorette.
Okay, Golden Bachelor. What's the deal here?
Do you want to guess what that is before we
Ooh,
answer?
that's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it like its 25th year, so the pickings are from previous contestants?
No.
No, but that would be a good twist.
If it was silver, I would say okay. So they're gray haired. It's like
That's what it
the
is.
Salt
Yeah.
and pepper.
Because they're in
I
their
see.
golden years.
Then why
Yeah.
the hell isn't it Bachelor and Bachelorette silver?
I don't know. Gold is a sexier color, I guess.
Well, no, it's as Pam said, we call it the golden years.
Because they're all like retired and over 50.
Oh,
and
like
happy.
Golden Girls age?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Should be silver though. Not all that glitters is gold, folks.
I watched one episode of it. It's cute. It's a nice twist on the
they
Bachelor.
do feel like a little bit more genuine sometimes than the contestants that are younger. Because I don't know.
Yeah.
It does
That's-
seem like they're more like
that's what
interested in
I would
actually
watch
finding a
for
life
is-
partner.
Yeah. People who are more honest with themselves, who are open, who lived life, have life, are in the midst of life.
Bluesmith also said 911 on top of Wicked. Danny Yellow 13 named a book series, the Stormlight Archive series by Brandon Sanderson. It's like a high fantasy series.
Yeah, I've had this recommended to me quite a bit, and I am intending to pick it up next year.
Oh, okay.
So I'll let y'all
Isn't
know
Sanderson
how it is.
also like the king of fantasy?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Another Laura said Bridgerton season 3. We did 2 episodes on that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Julia said Ted Lasso, and she said it's the best modern comment on masculinity and mental health and more, told with laughter. I like
I gotta
this
get
show.
on that.
Yeah. Honestly,
Oh, yeah,
I
we
have
should.
not seen this yet, and everyone in my life has told me I need to watch it. It's one of those COVID era shows that I just missed.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
It's a
Laura,
feel-good
let's do
show.
a podcast on it.
Oh, getting caught up on Ted Lasso.
We'll
that
call
would be
it
so
Lassoed.
cute.
Lasso
Oh.
apostrophe ED, and it's you and me, and it's like, how did we
Yeah.
miss this show? No, every
I'm
time
serious.
I
Let's talk
buy,
about it.
I upgrade new
Apple
AirPods.
equipment.
My phone, I get that 3-month trial of Apple TV. I never use it. I haven't even logged
It's
in
worth
once
it.
to like be on the.
It
I
is
know
worth it.
Yeah.
there's this whole thing now with Apple TV having these amazing series that they either just don't advertise or like relying on word of mouth. Ted Lasso's been on my radar since day or month 1, but I haven't made the time yet for it.
I actually started watching it when I was in London, visiting with friends,
Ooh,
and
that's
so
fun.
the fact that it takes place over there, and then
Has
it
to do
is
with
a really
sports.
great series.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean it's the sports really isn't that huge of a factor. I would say it's more about humanity. It's more about people connecting with each other.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up Apple TV Plus, Eric, because some say it's the new HBO in that it's quality over quantity over in Apple TV Plus land right now. They have a lot of good different series. Slow Horses, starring Gary Oldman, I've heard great things about.
Oh,
Severance
so
is
good.
amazing. People lose their minds over that show.
Yeah.
Shrinking is really good too.
Okay.
Wasn't also
Yeah.
that, is that Harrison Ford shrinking, or is that a different one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Carrying on here, Aristag03 said The Umbrella Academy, the final season came out in August, and it was messy.
I'm suspecting that is another show where it kind of finished the show, but there's still books coming out.
It's a
Honestly,
comic book
I don't know.
series, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that.
That's another one. I feel like this is just showing me how woefully
Yeah.
behind I am.
Well,
No,
look
but
at all
there's
the
so much all the
opportunities.
time.
The
Yeah.
opportunities
Yeah.
for 2025.
Yeah.
What
That's
the
true.
hype. Here's one that I am absolutely going to be undertaking very soon as I darn well can. Henemania said, "Only Murders in the Building."
Oh, it's
Yeah, it's a
so
good
good.
one.
Yeah, I
And it's-
love the
it's-
leads.
And it's about podcasters investigating a murder every season. So it's fun for us to watch too.
Yeah,
Brienne said the Massverse, that being the Sarah Mass,
Oh yeah.
Sarah J. Massverse. Jewel said Baldur's Gate 3, which is a video game, right? It's
Yeah.
very
it's
popular.
D&D,
Okay.
just in video game format. So it's a lot easier to play online with your friends, which you can do if you're doing the traditional campaign format. But this basically just gives you a way to play without any of you having to play Dungeon Master. The game kind of does that for you. So it's really fun.
Cool.
Even people who don't have like in-depth knowledge or like fondness for D&D have reported really enjoying it. So
that's
I
how
feel
it was
like
sold.
we would have fun together as a
Yeah,
group.
character customization and depth
Yeah.
of the lore. I hear nothing but good things.
Menagemo said Coachella, Bottle Rock, and other music festivals. That's fun.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
Mhm.
Gaga's going to be at Coachella next year. I'm excited
She
about that.
is.
You will
It's a
never
weird
catch
lineup
me
next year.
at one of those festivals. Just too many people and too much camping out and all that. But
You should go. Bottle Rock is a good one. It's out in Napa Valley. I've been a couple times. It's super chill. So if you're looking for a chiller festival, I would recommend that
That's
one.
cool.
Yeah.
And finally, Akuma Scout is looking ahead. They said they really hope that the new Daredevil series lives up to the Netflix one, the new one coming to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
I can't wait for this.
I am such a huge fan of in fact, all of Marvel Netflix. I loved watching all of it.
Yeah.
Even Iron Fist. And this, I'm very excited to see, Charlie Cox reprise the role and all of those characters live on.
A lot of good options here, a lot of good topics for us to discuss heading into 2025.
Jenna mentioned Golden Bachelor, Bachelorette. We're going to be talking about reality TV next week here on What the Hype. So stay tuned for that. I don't think we're going to be talking about The Bachelor a lot, but we're going to look at several reality shows that we have been into. So thanks everybody who let us know what they have been hyped about this year. And we will discuss what we were most hyped for in 2024 in a couple of weeks. So now it's time for some specific listener feedback about the episodes that we have done. Micah, you want to kick things off?
We heard from Steve likes food. I like food too, Steve.
Same. I'm hyped about food.
Likewise.
He says, I've loved Cobra Kai since it first premiered on YouTube Red. It's such a fun, badass, nostalgic, stupid-ass show. It has this weird, magical ability to repeat literally the same exact crap every season, but somehow still be entertaining as hell. No matter how many times Johnny and Daniel become friends, and then enemies, and then friends, and then enemies, every time they make up, it manages to be heartwarming. I can't wait to see how it wraps up in February. Steve did a great job of describing basically the entire series of Cobra Kai.
Fight, get back together. Fight, get back together. Cool.
That was a fun episode.
Here's another email we got regarding pop culture conventions and our episode on it from Lindsay. The Supernatural convention always drove connection with fans and actors for mental health struggles and empowering people to come together. beautiful moments to meet new people and raise each other up. Shout out to fans who post their convention experiences to get an idea as to what to expect and tips to make the experience of photo ops a positive experience. Cosplay is great because you can express yourself in a place where you know that other people might appreciate your interpretation of a character, no matter how small your budget is. Other cons I've been to, Rhode Island Comic-Con, I got to meet Tom Felton, which was a fun experience, and filled a hole of missing out on all the LeakyCons MuggleCast has been at that I was unable to attend. Still on the bucket list for sure. Yeah, those very like specific like mono fandom cons, which tend to be like slightly smaller than the big ones, can be really lovely for a lot of the things that Lindsay was talking about, mental health and just like meeting fellow fans a lot, and those very specific next level cosplays that were like one episode tops where one thing happened and you can just get really granular with it. It's very fun.
Yeah, I actually have a few friends that have gone multiple years to the Supernatural conventions, and they have nothing but fantastic things to say about them. And they said that it's like kind of like more of a familial feeling because you see a lot of the same people, a lot of the same actors come out because they thoroughly actually enjoy going. Because everybody there is like actually interested in the show. And yeah, it had really good reviews when it was going on. So it's a good one for sure.
Andrea wrote to us on Scary Movies and says, I'm usually not a huge scary movie fan, but I did love The Woman in Black. Micah, I believe that was one of your recommendations. And then Andrea also adds, Eric, I totally agree that Nightmare Before Christmas is a November movie. I don't know, Andrea. Them's fighting words.
I mean, it's freezing outside. Makes me think a lot of Halloween Town.
I'm curious what about The Woman in Black made her such a huge fan, given that she's not a big scary movie fan.
Dan Radcliffe.
Maybe it might be the
maybe.
That's what I was going to say.
That's probably the draw. There's also Kieran Hines.
Yeah. Okay. The Harry Potter
Dumbledore,
connections. Yeah.
But it's probably Daniel Radcliffe.
Probably. I also felt like it's been a minute since I saw that movie, but I felt like a lot of it was very psychologically driven. And I think that's a different type of scary movie, even if there is still a paranormal element to it.
Yeah.
That kind of movie leaves me more deep in thought than scared. And maybe that's what it is.
I can see that.
All right. We have more listener feedback today, but first we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. So continuing with the scary movie theme, Eric, we got more feedback about it.
From Pumpkin Mosiel. I think a good example of how excessive gore is lazy storytelling-wise is the Silence of the Lambs series. The original movie, The Silence of the Lambs, was so good. It had a compelling plot, interesting characters, and was gory enough to be scary without being gratuitous. But the later movies, I'm particularly talking about Hannibal, were just excessive, disturbing gore with no story or social commentary to back it up. It was basically just, quote, let's be as disgusting as we possibly can just for shock value because this movie has literally nothing else going for it, end quote. It still makes me angry because I loved the first movie. Red Dragon was also decent. And then Hannibal was just so disappointing while being so disgusting also that I still can't get the images out of my head decades later. After watching that movie, I couldn't stomach eating meat for about a month, and it made me seriously consider going vegetarian. So yeah, gratuitous gore is lazy, and I avoid movies that give me that vibe. I want to be entertained, not mentally disturbed. I'll agree with this.
Yeah, I agree with this. I think Pumpkin, I'm going to just refer to you as Pumpkin. I hope that's okay.
It's endearing.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're onto something because it is one thing to watch something that's very gory, but if there's an actual story that's part of it, there's motivation to continue, right? But I'm not even grossed out that easily. And if I watch a movie that literally has nothing going for it apart from gross out factor, I'm not into it either.
It's interesting that it feels okay. I'm going to say this also prefacing the fact that I'm not really into scary movies, but based on like, just like what Universal prioritizes for Hollywood Horror Nights, it feels like they are going more for like the disgust factor. And I hear a lot of people have stopped going in recent years because they're pumping in like smell of flesh and like bile and gross stuff into these mazes. And it just makes me think that like gore porn is on the rise as a trend in scary movies. But
or gorn, as it's known in the
industry. Trademark it.
I think I can't because CBS Paramount has gorn trademark. It's an alien race. Kirk fights one.
Probably doesn't understand the definition we just gave it, but
this next one comes from Kristen, who commented on the Song of the Summer episode. They said, I know it's controversial, but my Song of the Summer is Houdini by Eminem. Kristen, I actually don't think this is very controversial.
I do not think that is controversial.
Yeah, Laura and I have been saying, bop. And a big moment for millennials because it was such a like nostalgic throwback. So
I am thrilled to have Eminem back. That song does lean very heavily on Abracadabra by Steve Miller Band, which is a favorite of mine. This whole interpolation of, previous hits to score another hit, I feel less than stellar about, but it's great to have M back.
But that is also a trademark of hip hop as a genre. So I'm more forgiving.
How can I complain about this song without actually being offensive against hip hop?
No, you can't. But I'm just saying that, like, it is a good point that you're saying that, like, if all we do is like lean on interpolation, then music is going to get stale. But for a genre like hip hop, which kind of originates from using stems and interpolations and samples, I kind of like, it's such like a mark of what that music is that it's kind of hard to hold it against them. That's also why, not to go on a big tangent, but like whenever you look at like the liner notes for these albums, like, Song by Beyonce can have 16 different credits. And a lot of times it's not necessarily that 16 different people were actually writing that song. It's that they had to give credit to the samples that they used.
Yeah.
So it's just something
there's definitely times when I don't recognize it, it'd be like a drum beat or something, and it like really sounds good on the new track. And then the other ones, there's another example, which I disliked a little bit more than Houdini, but both times I was like, oh, it just leans, it's really egregious. Like it's just
for sure
it is that song.
But
we also got feedback about our Survivor episode. Lauren said, I so wish they would bring back different locations for each season of the show, but agreed, at least give us themes again. Themes were an exciting part of Survivor, not during the years that I have watched, but I know those were really big. Micah, like heroes versus villains, David versus Goliath.
Those definitely had a certain kind of appeal, but I am definitely a fan of different locations. I understand why it's just too costly to move from one location to the other to get all of the permits you probably need in different countries in order to film and do all of these different types of challenges too, because some of them are out in the water, some of them are on the island. And then of course you have people who are literally living on the island for a period of time, and we can debate, but probably destroying the natural habitat to some extent. So
possibly, yeah. But
there's all that.
We say that, and we could talk about this next week when we talk about reality TV, but there's the show Love is Blind, and they film each season in a different city. Now they're indoors. It's very different, but they are moving these crews around the country. It's not like they can't do it. It seems to me the biggest reason Survivor doesn't do it anymore is just because of how costly it is. And Survivor doesn't have the viewership numbers it once did. So I would like to see for their 50th season coming up, they actually film somewhere else. But then
get out of Fiji for a little bit.
Yeah. To your point, Micah, when you start listening to like the official Survivor podcast, the amount of effort and the crews that go into making each season happen is just mind blowing. And I'm sure it's a uniquely difficult show to produce and film compared to other reality TV. So,
yeah. Well, and on top of that, and we talked about this on the Survivor podcast that we did, they also scaled back the amount of time that they're spending out there.
Yeah, right.
That was initially because of COVID, but they haven't gone back to the old model that they had in place. So there's a lot of debate.
Mm.
If you win Survivor now, are you a true survivor?
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Anyway.
We're all true survivors. We live every day.
Selena also weighed in on Survivor to say, "Yay, Survivor. I started watching it season 7 and haven't missed it since. I hadn't really been loving the new era as much, but the last season, 46, was so good. Less random advantages and a really good cast. Justice for Charlie." Yes, justice for Charlie. And of course, Liz's Applebee's meltdown. Definitely the most iconic moment in recent years. Hoping 47 will continue in that direction. Funny to see 2 podcasters in the cast. Christine, who guested on the show with Andrew and I would root for you so hard if you ever went on.
Good feedback. Yeah, that was a good
Aw.
season with the Applebee's meltdown and
Survivor's on now, so I'll see
right
you later,
now.
Andrew.
Yeah,
Yeah,
as we're
literally
talking
right now.
Yeah.
Hey, it's your duty to the show.
Well, here's one more piece of feedback
All right, I'll
about
stay.
Survivor from Destiny. Yeah, you got to hear this. I clicked on this episode of What the Hype so fast, Destiny said. I've been watching Survivor since season 1, still in love with it, and love all the twists and turns and the new era. That's the shorter seasons. On the cash prizes, Destiny reminded us that season 40 was the Winners at War season, which was $2 million. They've stuck with $1 million otherwise. And yeah, so that's feedback from Destiny. And before we get to an ad break and look at listener feedback from the website, Shannon said, "Thank you for bringing attention to the treasure of a show that is Heartstopper.
Oh,
It is completely worth the hype, and I think just about everyone will enjoy it, if not learn something or be inspired."
agreed.
It's our most watched YouTube video,
Still?
that
Wow,
podcast.
that's great.
I love that.
All right. Well, we received a bunch of messages with recommendations for what to cover. Thank you all so much for this feedback, and we will definitely keep these things in mind. Here is some of that feedback. Drew said, "Hey guys, I just listened to the Scary Movies episode and it made me think about the scariest movie experience I've had. I may have been 17 at the time, and my friend and I watched The Fourth Kind. It's partly a found footage movie. I was so freaked out at the end of the movie, I made my friend drive me home so I didn't have to walk. Best experience for new viewers would be to go in blind and not read about the movie. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you decide to watch it, keep on keeping on."
Wow.
It's a great that is a really great recommendation.
Ooh.
And I have to say, found footage movies, they can either knock it out of the park or they can be terrible. I feel like there's not much in between. I've never seen a found footage movie and thought, that was okay. It's like either terrible or awesome.
What does found footage mean?
So probably a good example everyone's familiar with is the Blair Witch Project,
Okay.
where it's like they shot that footage and something clearly happened to them and somebody just found it. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Jennifer says, "Love this podcast. Just curious if you thought about covering all the glorious disaster flicks from pop culture, such as
Ooh.
2012, San Andreas, Armageddon, and Twister, to name a few. Also, as a side note, the parallel movies that came out around the same time, such as Volcano and Dante's Peak and Armageddon and Deep Impact. Thanks again for this podcast, as well as MuggleCast, longtime listener and millennial, new listener, but loving it. Keep up the awesome work."
This is a great topic. I
Oh,
love.
yeah.
I feel like we could do an episode on parallel movies alone, like not like disaster flicks one and then parallel movies, because there's so many of these too across genres, and for a while they were pumping them out like crazy. So
I know. It really did feel like they came out in tandem. Like I distinctly
Yeah.
remember the year of Armageddon and Deep Impact.
yeah,
And I remember as a kid being like, what is it with the end of the world movies?
What are they
this
trying
summer?
to tell us?
Yeah, is it
Yeah.
warning us of
That
something?
pre-Y2K, paranoia, I guess. But
I love
Da-
disaster flicks in the same way that I
Me
love
too.
like the Fast and the Furious franchise. 'Cause it's just
Yeah.
so bad, it's good. Yeah.
I think Dante's Peak is a favorite disaster film for me personally. Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton.
Did y'all see the new Twister movie over the summer?
Yeah.
Not.
That
I
was actually
haven't.
really good too.
It was pretty
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I need to
Good
watch it
soundtrack
then.
too. Yeah,
I
it's
love
worth
the
it.
original.
You know what's
You'll
ridiculous?
get some nice little Easter eggs in there.
Oh,
If you like
Okay.
the original too.
Okay.
They have the cow, the same cow.
Probably not the same one.
Right.
Okay, I shouldn't admit this, but I've never seen the original Twister, but I did see the sequel.
Oh.
Yeah,
What?
I know, bad, right? But I did the
Bad,
Twister
Andrew.
ride at Universal, which now no longer exists.
Yeah. Honestly, you should watch the original. It is very good.
It's
yeah,
good.
it's fun.
Yeah.
Pat has seen it so many times, and he was mad when he found out I hadn't seen it.
I
I'm
bet he
surprised that he
was.
doesn't like strap you down and make
You're
you
gonna
watch
wo-
these things.
Yeah, you're gonna
before you
wake up,
go
Andrew,
watch the
strapped
new
to a
ones.
chair and forced to watch
That
these
Love
classics.
Actually. One more email today, and I thought we could spend a few minutes discussing this one. Faith wrote in about spoiler etiquette. Hi all, I've seen some online discourse the past few months regarding spoiler etiquette, and rather than continuing to argue with people on the internet, I was curious about your thoughts.
I'm
A lot
glad
of
we're
people-
the authority.
We're going to have a more organized discussion about it than the headless commenters all around the internet. She said, a lot of people seem to think it's time-based, but I don't agree with that rule. Not everyone watches a show or movie right when it comes out, and also things keep getting adapted for new and expanded audiences. One TikTok that angered me in particular said that expecting spoiler warnings for Bridgerton was entitled because the books have been out for decades. While I think it's very valuable to read the book before watching the adaptation, I don't think people should be punished because they don't want to read the book. I also think it's worth noting that we give spoiler warnings more often than we think we're giving them by saying something as simple as, oh yeah, in season 4 of Game of Thrones. With algorithms constantly trying to keep up, I think it's difficult to have complete control over what content shows up on feeds like Threads and TikTok. At the same time, there are certain spaces that I think are safe places to be spoilery. If I'm watching Lost for the first time and I go to the Lost subreddit, I can't exactly get mad if I get spoiled. Also, there are spoilers that have seeded into pop culture to the point of no return, like Luke Skywalker's father. Anyway, curious to hear y'all's thoughts. Are spoilers fair game after a certain time? Are they never okay? Or is it more complicated than that?
I really love communities like Reddit where it's very easy to indicate what's a spoiler and what's not. It allows people to be on the same channel essentially, but not run that risk of getting. Usually the moderators are also good at policing that sort of content. On other apps, can't speak to TikTok, but on X, you can mute things, so that might be helpful. You can selectively kind of try and control what appears in your time on your feed if you don't want to be spoiled.
It makes me think back to how when we started to do MuggleCast, we had a spoiler warning at the very top of the show to deter people. But I do think a lot of the onus is on the person to be mindful of what it is that they're consuming. And the example that was used here with Reddit, if you're actively looking for things, then it's on you, right? Like that's how I feel. And if you know that the season finale of a show is coming up that you've been watching for the last several weeks and you for some reason happen to miss it, maybe stay away from your social media feeds until you actually watch it.
I mean, you can't go seeking people out where they are, though. Like that guy that drove to the people who were in line for Deathly Hallows.
That's different.
Going to where the fans are and actively spoiling. That's malice. That's
But Eric, your point about muting keywords is a good one, I think. If you're really trying to avoid spoilers about a show you're currently watching, go on Twitter or Threads or wherever else and mute certain words. And I think you asked about TikTok, Eric. I don't know if you can mute certain things on TikTok, but I feel like people are pretty good about laying spoiler warnings up front so you can quickly swipe past.
I mean, I also just for example, if Fourth Wing is a good example, right? It's a long book. Everybody's reading at their own pace. If I'm on TikTok still when that, the third book drops and someone says, I want to talk about this thing with regards to Onyx Storm, I'm just going to scroll past really quick. I'm kind of with Micah that part of this is personal responsibility. Like, I get that you want to be involved in the conversation, but maybe just bookmark that and save it for later. You can always come back to it. I mean, if you're going to sit there and wait around to see what they're going to say, chances are you're going to get spoiled because you don't know how far past where you are that person has read. So, yeah, just learn how to scroll past really quick if you're a TikTok user, I guess. But other than that, I think that the blocking certain words works on Twitter and Instagram, so it should work on Threads as well. And I know people that have had good luck with that. I do think it's time-based. I think that Bridgerton was a bad example of this because the only thing you're going to get spoiled about there is like the couples.
Right.
Like the show and the books are so different at this point that it's like
And the
there's
mirror.
not a lot. Yeah. But yeah, like other than that, I do think that like there has to be a time limit set because it's like with Cobra Kai, like when Mike and I were doing that episode, the Karate Kid has been out for so long at this point that you can't like,
right.
Yeah. Or like even like the first season of Cobra Kai has been out at this point for so long that yes, maybe like you don't know the ins and outs, but it's hard to play with like with like how much to like keep close to the chest and like how much to not if you're trying to cater to many audiences. So
it also for me, I like being able to find spoilers if I know that I'm not going to watch something promptly, like on for certain things.
Yeah.
Like I have actively sought out spoilers for things that are like second tier, third tier on like my radar to be able to find it. So I like the fact that those are available out there.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do that with reaction videos on YouTube. If they want to know what happens in a show, but they don't have the time to actually sit down and watch it, a lot of people will go to these YouTubers who post reaction videos so they can get the gist of what's going on in the show.
But to go back to the Bridgerton example, I agree that I see the points about Bridgerton, but what about when Game of Thrones, the TV show, was airing? There were some major things that happened that book readers had known for years, but they kept it quiet because they knew TV viewers wouldn't want to be spoiled on these big things.
That was a good 10 years.
I'm sure that they existed in certain parts because like I think that like with any book series, if you are watching an adaptation, part of the fun in discussing it is just saying, oh, they left this Easter egg in this season. I think that they're teeing this up. So then the question is like, do you consider that a spoiler because you've never read the book? It gets so like, we can get so in the weeds about all of this. And
yeah,
I guess
really
the point is that like, you're never going to do something that like in a way that pleases everybody. So yeah, just tread cautiously, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I just feel like it's it can be kind of case by case, and I think some of the golden rule does apply here, right? Like even as a content creator, on this show, as podcasters, we give spoiler warnings left and right when we're about to talk about things that require some prior knowledge. Because I don't want someone to pull up our episode of Agatha All Along, for example, not knowing that it's actually a series of TV shows and not just a standalone thing, and then suddenly have the entire premise of WandaVision spoiled for them, right? Like,
yeah.
I think as a creator, it is also on us to be mindful of, hey, if someone who's not familiar with this brand or this universe stumbles onto this, are they going to immediately know that they're spoiling themselves because they don't understand where this piece fits into the overall like larger universe of whatever it is I'm talking about? So I do think it's important to disclose up front if you're going to be covering spoilers. At the same time, I do agree that there is a lot of personal accountability here. Like, if you're really that worried about getting spoiled, you should probably just avoid social media until you can.
I would also just argue too that like, yes, you're right. And I love how we do that here on this show and how we've always done it on other shows where we give people a fighting chance by explicitly saying, hey, you're entering spoiler country. But also if you see an episode about Agatha all along, that alone is probably your clue to not click on it if you haven't finished the season yet. Right. So like that's kind of like where I have to draw the line, because some people get like so offended, but it was like their choice to click on it. It was their choice to keep listening past a certain point where we give the spoiler warning, or to read past a certain point where you put the spoiler warning up on an article. For example, I've had people come at me for that in my journalism career before because they're dumb. It's like you're trying so hard to help sometimes. People, and you just can't help everyone.
I want to raise another situation though. You can try to do all this. You can try to be preventative, muting keywords, staying off social media, all of that. But still, you always have the risk of being spoiled. And I'll give you an example. There was a time over the last few years when I was really into Jeopardy. And there have been certain contestants in recent years who have had great runs. Amy Schneider, Matt Amodio, Matea Roach. And I can't remember which of these three it was with. Maybe Matt Amodio, because he had his streak in 2021. So it airs 7:30 East Coast, but not until 7:30 on the West Coast too. The freaking New York Times sends out a breaking news push alert when Matt Amodio's streak comes to an end. I didn't want to be spoiled. So what I started doing after that, when contestants started having big runs, is I set up a focus mode on my phone where for that 3-hour span where I could potentially be spoiled from the New York Times, I wouldn't get any notifications from the New York Times.
Andrew, I feel for you. That's awful.
Yeah, I was so upset. And a little side note, one night with one of these other contestants, my mom texted me and my brother, and she's like, you absolutely must watch Jeopardy tonight. I'm like, okay, thanks, Mom. So I think I know what's happening now.
That's like the equivalent of getting a alert about the Red Wedding in season 3 of Game of Thrones.
Right.
And it's telling you exactly what happened in the Red Wedding.
Yeah, because I was going to say, otherwise it's a perfectly innocent name. It doesn't indicate what parties are part of it. It doesn't say anything about who is involved. Red Wedding is such a lovely, mystery.
But I do like what was being said, though, earlier about there needing to be some collective responsibility. And what I'm thinking about, too, is the way sometimes communities can be protective of people who are getting into these particular books or movies or TV shows for the first time. And no greater example than Kiera Lewis and her reading
about her,
of Harry Potter. I know she's gotten into other things since then, but the community is very protective of ensuring that she is not spoiled until she makes her way finally. And I know she's on Deathly Hallows right now. That's such a great example. The one thing I don't agree with, though, in this email, we're talking about Bridgerton in particular, but it really applies anywhere. I understand that the book series existed first, but it's not the book series that's drawing in all these other people. So it's not fair to use that as, well, you should have read the books, right? You could, you're trying to essentially place blame on a person who has now been drawn into a show like Bridgerton because of the show, not because of the books. And so it shouldn't be on that person to, just because the books came out however many years earlier, to know what happened. So I don't really like that argument. I don't like it about Game of Thrones. I don't like it about most things. Because some people just aren't into books either.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, honestly, Faith, I kind of feel like the person who said that on TikTok was gatekeeping. And we see that with a lot of fandoms, unfortunately. There are always a few people, a handful of people who want to be the best fan, the most dedicated fan of XYZ thing. And they're doing that to put themselves up on a pedestal. So
yeah,
that comment actually had nothing to do with you or anyone else. It had to do with them.
So wait,
and to that point, you're seeing that happen with Wicked right now, which is an awful example, because theater in general is so inaccessible to so many people. You have to be in the right cities. If you're not in the right cities, you have to be able to travel. You have to be able to afford the tickets. And it's just something that not everybody has the luxury of doing. So, you can't not fault people for not knowing certain things.
Also, isn't there a situation where the book is vastly different than even the musical or the movie? And you have to be really darn careful about picking up the book, which is now slapped with the Wicked poster on the book cover for the movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're not going to get the same like content warning. So here's a question, as we eventually stare down and look into talking about the Harry Potter TV series on MuggleCast, are we going to release a spoiler warning of, hey, if you haven't read the first Harry Potter book, don't.
Oh, the first Harry Potter book? What? Oh, no, that's different because
say the
our
very
audience
first
will have...
episode, the very first episode of the TV series, will it warrant a spoiler warning since we just stated the case that people can come to a TV series
completely? That is actually a good point to make because you're obviously hoping that more people will discover your show as a result of the TV show, right? So then you might have like a Kiera Lewis or multiple Kiera Lewis.
Sure, we'll add a spoiler warning. It can't hurt. I mean,
I don't see a problem with it. It can be such a quick thing at the top.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
We'll be discussing Easter eggs, etc.
Yeah, we'll just use the same spoiler warning that Andrew recorded in 2005.
Oh, can we do that?
I think it specifically says Half-Blood Prince. But
cut out the part where it says Half-Blood Prince and re-record it.
Yeah.
Using your present day voice.
The spoiler warning for Sorcerer's Stone. Pause now.
It's so good.
All right. Well, Faith, we hope we answered your question there. Always an interesting debate because there's so many different opinions on spoilers. So like I said, coming up in our final episodes of the year, we're going to do some reality TV talk next week. And then in 2 weeks from now, we'll talk about what we were hyped for most in 2024 and what we're hyped for in 2025. So thanks everybody for listening to this week's episode. And thanks to everybody who has contributed feedback, whether or not we read it on air today. We have read it all and we really appreciate it. So keep it coming.
It's great to hear from people. This is our first mailbag episode.
I know.
It's a big moment.
Don't forget to follow us in your favorite podcast and social media apps and keep that feedback coming. Speaking of feedback, we would really appreciate a review in your favorite podcast app. So that is the hype around what everybody's hyped about. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.